Now, just outside of the Fremont County Courthouse, we are not going to be allowed inside the actual courtroom because of COVID-19 precautions. But of course, there is so much leading up to this moment that we need to catch everybody up on. Of course, we could go all the way back to September. That's the day that Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow were last seen. Tylee Ryan is 17. At the time, JJ was 7. Since then, he has had his 8th birthday. We are hoping and praying that those human remains found in Chad Daybell's backyard yesterday morning do not belong to those 2 kids. Police did reveal this morning that those remains do belong to 2 people, but they did not go into any more detail than that, stating that a full autopsy needs to be conducted. Of course, there are preliminary DNA results that can be done on human remains depending on how much is in there, but they need to do all of the scientific evidence, precautions, every autopsy, everything they can to make absolutely sure before they could charge Chad Daybell with something other than what he is charged with right now. Just those 2 felony counts of concealment or destruction of evidence. Of course, there is a wide variety of charges he could have been facing today. Right now, we just know about the 2. We very well could be back out here looking at additional charges anytime in the next few days and the next few months as multiple cases against Chad Daybell continue. Remember, he is not just under investigation by the Rexburg Police Department. He is also under investigation by the Fremont County Sheriff's Office and the Idaho Attorney General. One of those cases having to do with the suspected murder of his wife, Tammy Daybell, last October. You might remember she did not wake up. She went to sleep. She was 49 years old. At the time, they said she died from natural causes. In December, they determined her death might be suspicious. That's when they dug up her grave, exhumed her body in Springville, Utah, and decided to do further testing. It has been 6 months since that day. We are still waiting on autopsy results related to that. The other thing that we're looking at is the charges against Lori Vallow. Remember, she was charged earlier this year, January, February, arrested in Hawaii, and then shipped back here on a plane to the mainland around February, facing a few other charges. At that time, police said that Chad Daybell did a lot of the same things that Lori Vallow did in terms of lying to police about the location of the children and potentially telling other people to lie on their behalf. For example, telling them that the kids were staying with a friend in Arizona. That obviously did not turn out to be the case. We still do not know where those 2 children are. Of course, we are standing by, going to be watching this hearing on the YouTube live stream like everybody else. We will be carrying it live here on Fox 13 with the latest developments. We're all really just looking at our phones, waiting for that alert to pop up so that we could listen in. My understanding is that Chad Daybell, the attorneys, the judge, they may not even be the ones standing in the courtroom throughout these proceedings, that Chad may be in his cell with a laptop or webcam of some sorts, that the judge may be in his chambers talking to the rest of the people on a Zoom call. Of course, this is something we've all been getting used to since COVID-19. A lot of precautions here in Idaho, including not allowing anybody, including the media, into the courtroom. Guys, we'll throw it back to you in the studio.
The community of Rexburg is feeling, and he agreed to the interview. And when we started recording, that's when he released the information that the children may have been found.
Yeah, it's pretty strange for them. Some of these people live directly next door to the courthouse, which is directly next door to the jail. And they told me they have been following this case like everybody else for months. In some ways, especially for the people who never met Chad Daybell before this, they said it almost doesn't feel real. They're just watching it on their phone or on their computer through a screen. And then last night, as they put down their head and go to sleep, they have that thought. Chad Daybell is right across the street doing the same thing in a jail cell right across the street from my house. That is a strange thing. Some of them have put up some signs, some sidewalk chalk in support of JJ and Tylee. It says support for JJ and Tylee. Also some quotes talking about how important it is to take care of your children. Clearly, they do not know exactly what the results of those human remains are. Some people hoping for the best, of course, others fearing for the worst, but definitely a weird thing for these folks who live right here, are directly across from the courthouse, and are directly across from Chad Daybell's cell. A very small jail, only about 20 beds in there. At one point, one of the employees was telling me they had it down to 8 beds due to COVID-19. A very small operation here in Fremont County, and taking every precaution that they can. Yeah, so we are really hoping to get some more information on exactly what police have that led them to finalize these two charges. Of course, it could have been a number of other charges. These are the two that they have settled on for now. Dan, you mentioned how this could be a short hearing. That really remains to be seen, because one of the things that they're going to talk about is Chad Daybell's bail. He's going to want to be out of jail and back in his home if that is an option. Right now, he is set for no bond, but that is a temporary thing, we assume, until this hearing. We saw in Lori's case, for example, in Hawaii, her bail was initially set at $5 million. It was eventually reduced down to $1 million, and neither of them have been charged with a severe, violent crime like homicide or murder, anything like that. These are still very high numbers, and we assume prosecution will want that number to be as high as possible to keep Chad Daybell from leaving his jail cell, and we assume the defense, of course, will want that to be as low as possible, stating that there are only these two felony charges, concealment of evidence. The only thing we do know in relation to these two charges are the dates listed on the criminal complaint. One of them listed as September 8th, the other one listed as September 22nd, both of those dates referring to 2019. We believe those two dates correspond to the last two dates that JJ and Tylee were last seen, which seems to imply that the evidence that was either concealed or destroyed, according to police, might have to do with JJ and Tylee, or perhaps even those human remains belonging to JJ and Tylee. Of course, all of that still unconfirmed. We're hoping to get some more information on how police got to those charges, but we're also hearing reports that police might want that information to be sealed from the media and from the public so as to not interfere with their investigation. Yeah, it will be very interesting to see if that's something that is brought up by the prosecution in this case. Of course, we know that he has worked in a couple cemeteries in Utah as a sexton or as a gravedigger. It will be very interesting to see if that's something that's brought up as a reason for why those human remains were found in the backyard.
We're going to go on the record. Good morning here in Fremont County, Idaho. This is the case of CR 2220-755, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. This matter is being held at the Fremont County courtroom via Zoom remotely. Mr. Daybell, the defendant, appears with his counsel, Mr. Pryor, at the the jail here in Fremont County. Mr. Wood appears remotely from his office. There is the clerk here, there's a court reporter, and there is some IT support that is also on the line. This is the date and time set for an initial appearance. The reason we're holding this hearing remotely via Zoom is due to a order that's been issued by the Supreme Court. In that order, it designates that whenever plausible, hearings are to be held remotely in order to effectuate safety of society and effectuate safety of all employees in the courtroom. In future proceedings, it will be an issue that's addressed case by case and hearing by hearing. That order is dated April 22nd, 2020, and has been issued by the Idaho Supreme Court. Mr. Daybell, do you read, speak, and understand the English language?
Yes.
Mr. Daybell, can you hear me okay today?
Yes.
Mr. Daybell, it appears that you have hired private counsel, Mr. John Pryor, is that correct?
Yes.
And you'd like to retain him. Mr. Pryor, has there been a formal notice of appearance that has been entered?
Judge, I will get that filed within short period of time.
All right, but Mr. Daybell, Mr. Pryor is your attorney for this hearing, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Daybell, have you seen a notification of rights form that was provided to your counsel prior to the hearing here today?
Yes.
That were contained in that notification of rights form that was given to you. I'm going to advise you of additional rights under Idaho Criminal Rule 5. Number one, you have the right to be at the initial appearance or appear via Zoom remotely like you are today. You don't need to make any statements today. You have the right to know what charges are being brought against.
For joining us this afternoon for our committee's first official remote hearing. I want to make sure to note some important requirements. House regulations require members to be visible through a video connection throughout the proceeding. So please keep your cameras on. Also, if you have to participate in another proceeding, please exit this one and log up back in later. And remember to remain muted until you are recognized to minimize background noise. Over the last few months, the outbreak of COVID-19 has led to an unprecedented public health crisis and a dire economic crisis. We have lost over 110,000 people to the disease and 40 million remain unemployed. Back in February, as the pandemic was getting worse, we knew we needed to take action to help our small businesses survive the economic downturn. We started working with the SBA and governors around the country to leverage the SBA's disaster resources available through the economic